Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. All right, we're good. All right, folks, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Friday Morning Live. Our season kicks off on January 15th, 2021. We're glad you're along for the ride this morning. Have a great topic and certainly some awesome guests as we kick off the 2021 legislative session, Capitol Days, and Political Engagement Month. Kind of a mouthful, but we have a lot to talk about of certainly all the changes that have happened up in Tallahassee about how session will be conducted and how FAI is certainly adapted to those changes and how we're going to continue to drive home advocacy and how we engage members in this new process, at least for 2021. So I thought we'd kick it off with there's yours truly, Dave Newell. Welcome aboard again, folks. But I thought we'd kick it off with Kyle this morning before we invite BG and Laura in. Kind of just set the groundwork, Kyle. You know, over the last few months, you have penned some blogs about the property market here in Florida and some of the frustrations certainly we hear from our members on a daily basis of what's happening here in and around the state of Florida. But just kind of, if you don't mind, just kind of give an overview of what you're hearing recently since you penned some of those blogs and the conversations you've had about the property market here in Florida.
Well, thanks for having me this morning, Dave. It's one of those things that, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, when I either write or talk about the property market. I'm not going to tell our members anything they don't already know. They live it every day. They have those conversations with their company partners and their customers every day. But there are some things that sort of lead to, the situation that we find ourselves in that some of our members may not be quite as aware of. And those are some of the data and statistics revolving around, industry losses and what's driving those losses. And so, that's what I've attempted to do here recently is, try to, make our members more aware of, kind of exactly what is leading to and contributing to the marketplace, and really start to kind of have a call to action that, lets our members know that, it takes everybody to make a difference here in Florida. For the last 16 years, I've been involved in the association's legislative and government affairs. And, we've done a lot of good things, but there are still a lot of things left to do. And, it's moments like these, like we found ourselves in after the storms of 04 and 05, and then, a sinkhole crisis. We've been here before. This is among the worst that I've ever seen. And, we're currently in a situation that is absolutely unsustainable for, the domestic market and frankly, anybody else who is writing homeowners business here in Florida. And so while we have a great team here in Tallahassee at the association, I'm really proud of the work that we have done and the work that we will continue to do with BG and Laura. It takes involvement from our members. We're, good at what we do, but we aren't the constituents, and our members are the constituents, and they serve the constituents of members of the legislature. And so, oftentimes you hear people say, or our members say, that it's just too overwhelming to, go have a conversation with a legislator. They won't listen to me. It's intimidating. And, I always remind our members that, look, you know more about insurance than, 99.9% of the members of the legislature could ever dream of knowing. And you have firsthand accounts, as I mentioned earlier, of what you deal with on a day-to-day basis in your conversations with consumers. And, frankly, what this fraud and abuse that's going on here in Florida is doing to the marketplace and ultimately to consumers here in Florida. So, we really do need, the industry to come together, and agents are a vital part of, getting anything meaningful done here in the upcoming session. So, that's been the purpose of some of the things that I've written lately. It's one of the main reasons why, we're moving towards this political engagement month. aside from the fact that we can't do a in-person meeting for Capitol Days, which I don't want to get too far into the details of any of that and steal the thunder of BG and Laura. But it does. It takes all of us coming together to make a difference and get something done in this upcoming legislative session that will start the first week of March.
Well, thanks, Kyle. You know, as you mentioned it a couple times about constituents and how important they are, and so I want to bring BG Murphy in, who's now our Director of Government Affairs here at FAI, and certainly, hopefully one day, BG, you'll get to meet many of these members that are on this call as you travel around the state. But right now, we're kind of locked down here in Tallahassee, and as Kyle mentioned, you know, not being able to have an in-person meeting this year with Capitol Days. But one of those constituents we're all awful proud of, somebody here in Tallahassee, BG, that was able to represent FAI and member agencies yesterday during a Commerce Committee hearing, and you penned a blog about it yesterday. So kind of lead us through that, how that developed and how Mary Catherine did yesterday, speaking to that committee.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to make sure you could hear me before I went into my spiel. So thank you for that. And before I get into that, I'll say you're absolutely right. I'm so incredibly excited about getting out to meet our members in the very near future. You know, in government affairs, we're in the relationships business, and there's no better way to build that relationship than an opportunity to sit down with someone face to face and share a coffee or a meal or a beverage and just getting to know somebody in person. So to everyone listening today, I look forward to getting out and meeting with you this summer. But we had an incredible opportunity this week in committee, and just a little bit of background. So the first legislative committee week was this week, and there was a heavy emphasis on the troubled property market here in Florida. You know, the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee held a panel with Commissioner David Altmeyer and President and CEO of Citizens Barry Gilway. The House Insurance and Banking decided to tune in and focus wholly on Citizens. But as you all know, that's such an incredibly important piece here, as what's going on at Citizens usually is a good indicator as to what's going on in the market. But the highlight of the week was the House Commerce Committee. Chairman Ngolia is the chairman of the House Commerce Committee, reached out to the association a few weeks ago and asked if we would be willing to have an agent speak on their panel yesterday. So we tapped in Mary Catherine Lawler locally here in Tallahassee, and she had an opportunity to testify alongside Commissioner Altmeyer and Barry Gilway again. And the reason they wanted an agent's perspective, the thing that we all have to keep in mind is not everybody who sits on a committee is on there because they have a given set of experiences that help them to understand the issues. To many of them, their extent of insurance knowledge is just that they have an insurance policy on their car and on their house. So when you get Commissioner Altmeyer and Barry Gilway up there talking about LAEs and glide paths and actuarially sound rates, you know, a lot of members tend to glaze over, and it's not for a lack of interest, but more importantly for a lack of understanding. So Mary Catherine testified yesterday, and I'll tell you, having had to have testified 1,000 times myself, and I have the blooper reels to show it, you know, she did so incredibly well yesterday in articulating the concerns that agents see, both as small businesses, but more importantly on behalf of the constituents that you all represent. And you could just look across the committee room and tell that people were finally realizing how these issues are plaguing their constituents. When their constituents are getting a notification from their agent that their policy has been non-renewed or canceled, when they're getting calls from when they're having discussions with their constituents who've received, you know, anywhere from 20 to 70% rate increases in a given year. You know, hearing from an agent who was there on behalf of the agents, but more importantly, the agent's constituency, you know, that helped them to quantify and understand how this is having such a meaningful impact on the people that these legislators represent. And if you've not had a chance to watch the committee hearing, as Dave mentioned, I did a blog yesterday. It has a link to the committee, and if you scroll to about the 29-minute mark, you'll have an opportunity to see Mary Catherine's testimony, and I can't say it enough. She knocked it out of the park.
Thanks, BG. Hey, Ken Kadowski, I think you're unmuted. If you can mute your phone line, that would be appreciated. People on the call are getting some feedback. That's the only one I see that may be unmuted, Ken Kadowski. Thank you so much. Hopefully that'll resolve that. And again, thank you, BG, for that. And as we lead into the next today's topics, the legislative session, what changes we'll see on how not only our advocacy team can interact with members of the legislature, but what's coming in this session, Capitol Days. Some of the exciting things we normally do at Capitol Days, we're just going to have to do some of those remotely. And certainly a new feature here at FAI called Political Engagement Month to engage members of FAI throughout the month of February to help in that advocacy that we do in person. We'll just have to do it virtually. So let's go into the first one, BG, of how this session and committee weeks will be conducted. And certainly you just mentioned today is the end of the first committee week. So how are these protocols impacting this committee week and certainly the upcoming session?
Absolutely. So, it was really interesting being in the building yesterday. As a former employee of the state, I've spent many years working inside of that building, and I'll tell you, I'm always excited to see it, but I'm always excited to get away from it as well. But taking Mary Catherine in to testify yesterday, it was just something I never could have imagined seeing. Members who, any member of the public who wants to have a meeting in the Capitol, they have to get prior authorization, not only from the person's office that they're meeting with, but that office then has to meet with the sergeant, staff, Capitol Police, and that has to be approved. And then you're essentially given a hall pass to go from point A to point B, and then you immediately have to turn around. Going into committee yesterday, there were 6 people in the audience, and all of them were either speaking directly on the panel, or they were there accompanying the person who was testifying. So that's certainly going to change how we do our business this year. And while it changes it, it doesn't take away from the fact that we're still going to be advocating at the highest level. FAIA has a long history of having very close relationships with the members that matter to, with the legislative members that matter to our association members and the issues that we focus on. So we will continue to work closely with them. It might be through a Zoom meeting or a phone call, but certainly we'll still have the opportunity to meet with them outside of the Capitol and have that opportunity. And given the fact that the Capitol is largely closed, you're exactly right. We have decided to switch gears with the Capitol Days. I'll tell you, my colleagues here in the office have probably heard me talk about it ad nauseum, but having you all here in person is so incredibly important. As Kyle said earlier, you all are the hands, or the soldiers actually throughout the state who see things firsthand, and having the ability for legislators to hear directly from you all in person is so incredibly impactful, and I could never overstate how important that is. But because of that, we have decided to kind of shift gears. We've taken a look at this and think that while it's unfortunate we can't all be here, it certainly creates a specific set of opportunities for us to be able to do more and to be able to include more people who may have not had the opportunity to dodge out of the office for a few days to come up to Tallahassee. And we're really excited about the opportunity that it creates for not only people who have previously participated in Capitol Days, but new people who haven't. So we are very excited about that and all that's to come with that. And we're certainly going to get into that a little bit here in just a minute.
Okay. Well, thanks, BG. And, as we switch gears and slides, thing that we're kicking off the 1st of February is Political Engagement Month. And that is something that is new to FAI and certainly the members we represent, of how we will conduct ourselves and having events throughout the month of February leading up to the legislative session beginning the first week of March. So again, BG, just kind of your thought process on how this will work and how certainly our members that are online today or those that will be listening to this recording in the future, how they can stay engaged in this legislative process.
Absolutely. So, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but registration opens on Monday.
Correct. Yes.
We're sending out registration information to everybody who would like to participate on Monday. So certainly be on the lookout to make sure that you see that information and have an opportunity to register. Before I get into everything, the neat thing about this is that it's self-guided. You know, we recognize here at FAI that many of you are running small businesses, stay very busy with your constituency, and certainly don't want to overwhelm anybody. So the neat thing about it is you know, we have put together an amazing agenda, and you can kind of a la carte take a look at what you want to participate. If you ask me, I'd tell you to do everything, and certainly would love and welcome all of you to participate on everything. But kind of scroll through, see what piques your interest, see what you think makes sense for you, and kind of do so accordingly. So we're going to start our first event on February 1st at 1 o'clock. We're gonna open up our legislative briefings from FAI's President and CEO Kyle Ulrich and Chairman of the Board Dan Alexander. I know that they are very excited about what's going on here in the month of February, and they're going to kind of kick it off for us. And then for those of you who have previously participated in the Capitol Days, we'll do what we call our legislative briefing. And basically what that is an opportunity for us to inform you all on what we will be working on this year. I'll get into some of the issues a little bit later, but it's an opportunity for you to see what our membership and board have decided that our focal points will be for this session, and to learn a little bit more about those issues. And that really serves a couple of purposes. You know, it allows you all to hear exactly what we're focusing on. So as we set up, and I'll get a little bit more into this in just a minute, as we set up one-off meetings with legislators from across the state, you all are informed and you know, can discuss these directly with the legislators who are instrumental to us. But it also helps us to make sure that we're getting good feedback from you all. You know, we've discussed these issues with countless people, with the legislative council, with members who call in. But you know, it'll be an opportunity for those of you who maybe have not had the opportunity to meet with us to maybe reach out and have a call with myself or Laura or Kyle to give your perspective on the viewpoint. And as you all know, as many voices as we can get in a public policy discussion, it helps to shape that discussion and to make sure that we have a well-rounded approach to addressing it. But following that, each week we'll have a different presentation. You know, we're going to be doing a property panel where Kyle and David Altmeyer and Barry Gilway talk about some of the public policy discussions that are happening amongst the property market. We've certainly heard a lot of testimony from industry experts, regulators in the past week about what's going on in the property market, but we're going to be looking forward to Kyle's discussion where he actually digs in a little bit more into how we're looking to address those issues. So that'll be one of the panels. We're going to hear from elected officials throughout the state. We're going to hear from our state CFO and legislative leadership. Will be a great opportunity to kind of hear from all of the key decision makers as to what they plan on focusing on in the 2021 legislative session from an insurance perspective, but also for them to talk about specifically what they foresee on the horizon as it relates to some of the major insurance issues that are being discussed, whether it's property, whether it's repealing PIP and moving to a BI, and just about everything in between. So as you register for that, you'll have an opportunity to kind of take a look at the events and see what's going on. I will give you all just a quick heads up, and I alluded to it earlier. Another thing that we do with Capitol Days is every year we kind of break people up into groups, and they go sit down with members of the legislature to talk about FAI's priorities and the issues that are important to you all. Those will be scheduled throughout February. As you all can imagine, committee weeks are not always announced until a little bit closer until the date of the actual committee. So those will be scheduling on those will happen from now until the last one probably happens. So while you may not see those, don't be concerned about that. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to speak directly with your legislators and legislators in surrounding areas to talk about the issues that are important to you.
Well, yeah, and that leads us into the next slide, BG, talking about how members of FAI can stay engaged, get engaged, and help this process along. On this virtual platform that we've set up for the month of certainly February, but beyond that. So these meetings will be set up via Zoom and be able for members to participate in these meetings, whether it's on a global basis or certainly somebody that is their local legislator, correct?
That's correct. So what we've done is there are really 5 committees, 6 committees that we really focus on between the 2 chambers. Now, of course, issues can sometimes get referred to an additional committee or a committee that's sometimes outside of the normal scope of our regularly scheduled committees. But when you take a look at it, on the Senate side, you have banking and insurance, you have judiciary, and you have rules. Those are kind of the 3 committees that, if you were making a bet on all of it, probably 97% of our bills will take that path before they eventually and hopefully, I will say, make it to the floor. On the House side, there's 3 committees, sometimes a 4th, that we'll likely see. And again, it's insurance and banking on the House side, the Civil Justice Subcommittee, and then the Judiciary Committee. Obviously, a lot of these issues that we work on are legal in nature. I don't think it's a well-kept secret that a lot of the issues across all lines of insurance are being driven by tactics used by the plaintiff's bar. And because of that, many of the issues that we dig into open up very legalese sections of law that require, a more specific concentration from one of those 2 committees that kind of dig more into the legal issues. So what we'll do is we'll work to see who's registered for those, and we'll do our best effort to make sure that we get you placed with a legislature who, like I said, is either from your direct location or someone who's in a surrounding area that you likely will know, likely already have a relationship with and have an opportunity to have those discussions.
Yeah, that's a great point, BG. And again, folks, information will start coming to you on Monday. Certainly go through it and participate as much or as little as your schedule allows. But certainly we encourage you to at least listen to the briefings, listen to some of the issues that FAI is advocating on behalf of member agencies. So, and if you have a concern, a question, certainly reach out to BG, Kyle, Laura, and the team here at FAI, and certainly have those discussions as we get prepared for the 2021 legislative session. So,
hey, Dave, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Laura.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, hey, I just wanted to say on those meetings too, and BG may have already said this, but again, you will be grouped with other agents from your area. So, you're encouraged to attend those as part of a group. It'll be similar to the in-person meetings we have at Capitol Days where, you only have, maybe 15 minutes with the legislator. They're busy. They have committee meetings, most of the time during the days. So, it'll be a brief meeting, and, we can help designate a spokesperson from your committee, from your group, I'm sorry, so that that person can kind of lead the discussion. There'll be an FAI staff member present. So, it's really just a great opportunity to participate in those meetings without having to drive to Tallahassee and, stay in a hotel and be here. I think, hopefully we'll get a lot of additional participation, more than we typically do.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And then the other thing that we can talk about, and BG, you mentioned it a little bit, certainly some of the key members of these committees that, as you said, we've built relationships with over time, and I know there's a couple members in leadership here in the Senate, certainly, that are agents, that are insurance agents and still practice that profession here in Florida. So who are some of those key members of leadership here that may be familiar to some on the call today?
Absolutely. So, you hit probably the most exciting thing that happened for us in 2020, in a year where there was not a lot of exciting news with all things COVID, and of course, Florida State football just taking a dump on all of us. But we got some really good news at the end of last year, and it's that two of FAI's members are the two leading members on the Senate Banking and Insurance. Senator Jim Boyd, former state representative, longtime FAIA member, will be chairing the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee. And Senator Doug Broxton out of Pensacola, again, a longtime agent, longtime FAIA member, and former chairman of the Senate Banking and Insurance, will be leading that committee this year. And I can't tell you all how important that is. Obviously, we have a relationship with them that goes back many years. But the opportunity to have that subject matter expertise, to have people who understand when you pull one string on insurance, how that can impact other parts of insurance. And that's something that we don't always have in the legislative process. So the ability to have that industry expertise on that committee is so incredibly important. But all those committees, as I mentioned, when I run through them, when I look at Senate Judiciary, and Senator Brandis will be chairing that committee. He has been a longtime ally of the insurance industry. He has a lot of knowledge in insurance. He actually worked on commissioning a report this year, taking a look at what's impacting the property market. And then you go down to Senate rules. Kathleen Pasadomo, future Senate president, will be running the Rules Committee. And again, her insurance expertise is second to none in that chamber. So we're so incredibly fortunate on that side. And then when you take a look at the House, while there are three people running those committees that don't all necessarily have the commensurate insurance expertise, they're legislators who have worked on these issues. So when you look at Nick DeSegli in House Insurance and Banking, and you look at Wyman Duggan over in the Civil Justice Subcommittee, they're legislators who have long acknowledged that the insurance industry is a critical part of our economy and to the financial services industry. And they have a broad understanding of how a hardened insurance market can have an impact on those industries. And what's really exciting is in the House Judiciary Committee. Prior to me joining, Kyle spent a lot of time on behalf of the association developing a relationship with Danny Perez, who's going to be chairing the House Judiciary Committee. He is actually a former insurance defense attorney. So he has seen a lot of the tactics that have been used by the plaintiff bars. He has a broad understanding of what's going on, and certainly look to continue to utilize that relationship with the association to make sure that they have the information, not only from FAIA staff, but from our membership as well, so they can work on crafting sound policy reforms.
Well, thanks, BG. And yeah, as noted there, BG, there's a lot of certainly people familiar to members on this call today, and certainly especially in the leadership role with Jim and Doug and others that have really been our shining star at moments, trying to lead the charge for advocacy for our members here in Florida. So, Laura, I thought I'd bring you in a little bit and just kind of maybe give BG a breath and maybe talk about some of the issues that we're facing here in this upcoming legislative session. Certainly the property market is one of them, but the DFS package, and then BG can talk about the COVID-19 liability protection for businesses. So you want to just give us an overview of some of the issues that we're working on right now on behalf of our members?
Sure. So the property insurance market reforms are going to be part of two separate packages, I believe. One is going to be coming out of the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee, and then and that will be Senator Jim Boyd's bill. And on the House side, I believe it'll be Representative Rommel's bill. Those legislative packages will probably include a variety of issues, some of which are familiar to you all if you've participated in capital days in the past. The first is reforms to the contingency risk multiplier, the attorney fee multiplier. There was legislation last year, and it will be similar. The issue will be similar this year, that that a contingency risk multiplier should only be applied to attorney fees in rare and exceptional cases. There's probably going to be some reforms on first-party attorney fees, the one-way attorney fee statute, the claims filing deadline, changing that possibly from 3 years to 2 years, and then issues with regard to depreciation on roofs, ACV for roofs. So those will be some of the issues that we might see in a property insurance reform package, and we'll go over those in the legislative briefing to make sure that everybody's up to speed on those. On the DFS legislative package, there will probably be some of FAI's priorities in that bill when it comes out of bill drafting. We worked on last year changing the CE requirement for the general course. That is now a 5-hour course required for all agents every 2 years, to change that to 4 years. That will most likely be in that bill. Changes with regard to the diligent effort exemption for flood policies. If you might recall, there was an exemption in the law that if a personal lines flood policy was exported, you did not have to do the diligent effort form. That exemption expired, and we tried to get it extended, and it was in a bill that did not pass last year, so that will be hopefully back this year. Some changes to the language of the disclosure form. When you actually use the disclosure form to export a commercial lines policy instead of the diligent effort, there'll be some changes in the language that's required in that disclosure form. And then the DFS package will also probably include some language that we drafted on the replacement cost estimator to help agents in situations where lenders are requesting these and the agents are not providing them, because really those are proprietary to the insurance company and the agents should not be providing those. We've got some language that will prohibit agents from providing such documents and prohibit lenders from requesting those. And so those are kind of the highlights of the DFS legislative package. And again, we will go over that in detail during the legislative briefing.
Okay, well, thanks, Laura. And BG, I guess to round off this slide, and a panel that we're doing for the e-summit, and we'll talk about that certainly another day, but the COVID-19 liability protection for businesses, certainly there's been some creation of committees within the House and the Senate to look at this, and you're going to lead us in a discussion on that, but kind of just walk us through what some of the thought process is here.
Absolutely. And before I get into the specifics of the liability protection for businesses, I think it's so incredibly important to just spend a minute talking about COVID-19 in general. We've been in what is an unfortunate pattern the past several years where there have been major issues that have eaten up a lot of attention of the legislature, whether it was the unfortunate event at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School down in Southeast Florida, whether it's been hurricanes, and now the newest one, COVID-19. It seems like we are in a never-ending pattern of something terrible taking up a lot of focus from the legislature. And I would suggest to you all that COVID-19 has impacted, as you all know, everything in our everyday lives. So because of that, there will be a tremendous amount of attention focused on all things COVID. To Dave's point, the House and Senate have created two committees who are charged with focusing specifically on COVID-19. They'll be taking a look at some of the executive orders and memos from different agencies and seeing where it might make sense to codify some of those changes. But one of the big issues that they're going to look at, and actually was discussed in committee this week, which is COVID-19 liability for small businesses. And this issue is important to agents, probably more than just about anybody for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, the liability that's associated with COVID-19 has increased policy costs significantly. I'm sure many of your consumers have seen drastic increases in rates due to the liability associated with COVID-19. That's something that they're going to be taking a look at. But the unfortunate part about it is earlier last year, Florida came out with a fairly stringent set of public safety health guidelines, as well as the federal government did too. The unfortunate part about it is a lot of these small businesses who are barely hanging on and trying to continue providing for their communities and their families, they are being shuttered due to frivolous lawsuits from COVID-19. Even though they took all of the proper steps to make sure people were social distancing, to make sure that people were wearing masks, following all the guidances from the state and municipalities as well. But they're still being subject to these frivolous lawsuit claims. So the legislature is taking a deep dive this year into making sure that businesses who make a good faith effort to follow those public health guidelines, that they are not subject to these frivolous lawsuits. Because at the end of the day, everyone is suffering from COVID-19, but a small business owner sitting at home at night, asking himself, do I open up so I can provide a living for my family and provide a service to my community? Or do I stay shut down because I'm fearful that someone's going to sue me claiming they caught COVID-19 within my business? You know, that's just an unfortunate conversation that so many people across the state are having. So the legislature is certainly going to take a look at that year to see how they might provide some protections to those individuals. And certainly, as you mentioned, there will be a panel later on this month where we will dig in with some experts, both from Florida and from outside of Florida, where we take a look at all things COVID liability related and kind of dig into more to some of the court cases that we've seen on a national perspective, and other issues related to COVID-19. And certainly will be an engaging and important conversation that we have later on next month.
Well, thanks, BG. And folks, certainly encourage questions. One came in about registering for the upcoming February events. And as BG mentioned, you'll start seeing notices come into your inbox on Monday. And as you look at that invitation, you can certainly pick and choose some of the events that you'd like to participate in. It's not all or nothing. It's whatever your schedule allows. So take a hard look at that and certainly register for the things that you can. And certainly when other events come available, there'll certainly be notices for you to engage in that process. So start looking for all that on Monday from FAI. So again, if you have any questions, just post them and we'll get to them as we can. Kyle, I want to go back to you. You've self-muted, so if you'll unmute yourself and just kind of you there, Kyle? There you go. Hey, Kyle. All right, got you back.
Hey.
So as we end this conversation, and I'll do a couple more slides on what's coming next here at FAI, but just you've heard the discussion, you've heard some of the things that certainly we're excited about to lead our members down this new way of doing things since we can't have in-person meetings. So any other words of encouragement or things that you think members need to be aware of right now as we deal with COVID-19 and some of the obstacles we face in the property market?
Well, I think, one of the comments that BG made is one that, I'd like everybody to kind of keep as top of mind. And it's easy to kind of look and see what's transpired over the last 10 months and kind of get a little down and, that sort of thing. But all of these challenges create tremendous opportunity, whether it's for, us here at the association, switching gears and, in a month's period, creating a full month of content to hopefully have a lot more of our members see how important political engagement is and give them opportunities to do it without necessarily having to leave the office, or whether it's our members themselves, just looking for opportunities, in both consumers and businesses are looking for new ways to engage. And I think that there's a lot of agents who have really looked at this as an opportunity and have done really well over the last 10 months. And others maybe have looked at it through a little different lens and felt like, gosh, this is just something I can't control. And, it's going to have an adverse impact on my business. Be forward thinking and be willing to adapt and change. And those that are willing and able to do that will continue to succeed in the future. So it's something that we're working on very hard here at the association to make sure that the value proposition remains strong for our members. And we just encourage our members to try to look at these things through the lens of opportunity as well. I'm excited about the program that we have coming up over the next month. Some of the things that we're doing are things that we've talked about possibly doing for years, and now we're just kind of forced to do it. So I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic about the possibilities that we can, get some stuff done that would really be meaningful to our members and Florida consumers to stabilize the property market here in Florida and kind of get back to some sense of normalcy.
A question comes to mind, Kyle, since we've gone to this virtual situation with Capitol Days. Most of our members are used to 300 worders and leave behind cards that we arm members of our association with as they go and meet with their local legislators. So how are we, what is that going to look like this year as far as those two documents?
We will be producing the same type documents that we always have in the past. We will have position papers, 300 worders, white papers, and, also have, a virtual or, online kind of palm card that outlines in a very succinct way, what bills we're supporting and why. And so all of that will be available to our members. In the past, we've always made it available to our members online to be able to download and use in conversations that they have with members of the legislature. But we, of course, always print it and give it to folks who are here in person. So, those will be available the same way that they always have been online. And the nice thing about, us being able to work with our members and setting up meetings with members of the legislature is that, a staff person from FAI will be on each of those calls to be there to help answer any questions that may come up on some of the more technical things included in certain legislative proposals. But we'll also be able to do, screen share. So we'll be able to bring up those documents and use them as a reference for the meeting. So, there's good things that come out of some of this virtual stuff as well.
Yep. Well, thank you. And I didn't want to let that go by because I know a lot of our members rely on those pieces of information to arm themselves to have these discussions. So we'll have it virtually this year for you folks, and certainly have it on our website and available to you for use in printing or sending on to whoever's needed to see those documents. So, and then as we finish up today's show, just want to talk about as we continue here at FAI, we're virtual learning, distance learning continues. We don't have a plan at this point to begin any in-person classes in and around the state of Florida. So certainly check out our education calendar and sign up for webinars or webcasts that are upcoming to get your professional development training from FAIA. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, we kicked off another FAI Academy 220 edition at the beginning of this month. And we have many people going through this course. And this is designed for those folks that have had their 440 for a year and would like to convert that into a all lines, general lines 220 license. So certainly there's the information on the screen. We encourage you to take a look at that. If you would like to convert your license, we've had a lot of success with this class. We've heard from many members that have taken this in previous editions of the 220 Academy and have had great success passing the 220 exam. So if you're up for the challenge and you would like to take the course, certainly get online or send me or Emily an email, and we'll certainly answer any questions that you may have. Because as we all know, that a governor's order will expire again, and we may find ourselves, whether it's extended or not, that 440s will not be able to continue to work remotely under that order. So doing this will take some of the guesswork out of that. Another one that's coming up, and we'll have more info, is the 2044, and that's for the personal lines, converting your 440 to just a personal lines, all lines license. So upcoming shows, folks, we're excited to announce Cottery Insurance, another IMS partner that'll be here on the 29th. This group has options for agents for small commercial risks. So certainly encourage you to tune in on the 29th of this month to hear about them and some of the things they're going to offer you as a member of FAI. On the 19th of February, Citizens will be back with another Power Hour talking about all citizens. And certainly heard it yesterday from Barry Gilway during the Commerce Committee meeting, but we hear it all the time. Citizens has become that insurer of first resort in many parts of Florida because of the marketplace. So certainly tune in and hear the latest from Citizens. And then March 5th, we'll have Kyle back, and he'll be providing an update. He'll be in the helm at FAI about about 6 months, and just kind of bringing us all up to date on what's going on in and around FAI, and certainly lead us through the discussion of some of his thoughts moving the association forward. And then on March 2nd, Oceanus Partners, many of you deal with Frank and Susan, got an email from former chairman of FAI, Doug Wiles, this morning. Was trying to get a hold of Frank to run through a complicated work comp issue. So they've been our resource now for the last few years, and they'll be on talking about some of the things they can do to help FAI members. So we'll have some other dates sprinkled in there, but those are the ones that are confirmed. We encourage you to get online and register for those. You'll get the notices each time that you register, and then you'll get the reminders the day before and the day of each program. So again, we encourage you to follow FAI through the community. We mentioned blogs around here many times over the last hour, several times. So encourage you to sign up for those individual blogs and get that information as it becomes available, either from BG, Kyle, Laura, or myself on what's happening in the industry. So, and Paul is another frequent blogger on IT issues and some of the things that are going on in his world. So thank you. Thank you for attending today's session. We really appreciate your membership in FAI. We appreciate you joining us this morning, listening to BG, Laura, and Kyle talk about how important it is that even though we're in this virtual environment, how important it is that you continue to engage in this legislative process. We heard it loud and clear from Mary Catherine yesterday during the Commerce Committee. I know BG and Kyle, and I'm sure Laura, got many comments from not only people on that committee, but certainly people that watched that hearing and talked about how valuable that information was to hear from an independent agent speaking to people about what's happening in the property market here in Florida. So again, appreciate your time and energy this morning. Have a great day. And, for those in Jacksonville, listening in Jacksonville, they have a new head coach. So Urban Meyer now has accepted the head coaching job of the Jaguars. So look forward to that ongoing. So Thanks, folks. Have a great day, great weekend. Be safe. And we'll see you on the 29th. Thanks for tuning into Friday Morning Live.